When I came forward to tell my story, people thought I was crazy.
Joelle Kastik's story started back in the 80s at a Catholic high school in Orange County.
My junior year, the grooming process, the manipulation process, which gets a survivor to think that the abuse is okay, started right away. The worst part is that the school knew all along.
She says behind that smile was a troubled and vulnerable young girl, something she says her choir teacher took advantage of.
He sexually abused me over a 2-year period. And by the time I graduated high school, I was pregnant and had a sexually transmitted disease.
It would be more than a decade before she'd get the courage to publicly share her story.
That is the burden of shame of child sexual assault. I was not ready when I was 19.
That's why she helped pass this 2019 law that extended the statute of limitations for childhood sexual abuse lawsuits.
Thousands and thousands of survivors have come forward.
Nearly a decade later, survivors like Joelle say the law is working. Exposing abuse and forcing accountability, school districts across California are paying billions to settle decades-old abuse claims. But critics warn justice comes at a cost.
Everybody wants justice for these individuals, but there are unintended consequences.
According to public records, Dr. April Moore's small rural district recently paid more than $1.4 million to settle a case of alleged abuse from the 70s.
How many teachers could that money pay for?
At least 12.
12 teachers.
12 to 14 teachers.
The school superintendent says in most cases, schools pay settlements to avoid even more costly legal battles.
We can't even investigate accurately.
With physical records and witnesses long gone, and in some cases, the accused dead, digging through old yearbooks is sometimes the only way to confirm whether a student or employee even attended a school.
So we're paying claims for things that may have happened in the past, and we're using the funds that are earmarked and designated for today's students.
And due to school insurance pools, districts without abuse claims can be on the hook for settlements on the other side of the state. You see, instead of paying for individual insurance policies, California schools pool their money to cover claims. So one settlement impacts the entire pool. The ripple effect? Ongoing school insurance costs have nearly tripled, and today's struggling students are losing teachers and programs because of crimes committed in some cases before the students were even born, and at schools they've never heard of.
And that, to me, is an injustice for today's students.
If you were sexually abused in a California school, you may still have time to act.
Critics point to ads like these from law firms looking for clients.
There's like this whole new massive cottage industry that's arising.
Andy Baum, an attorney representing Los Angeles County, points to an LA Times investigation that found personal injury attorneys allegedly paid people cash outside a social services office to join their sex abuse lawsuit.
I want to believe a woman or anybody who comes forward and says I was sexually abused by this person. I've litigated cases where that was true. I've also litigated cases where it was found to be not true.
But Joelle Kastik stresses those cases are the exception, not the rule, in a system that's failed victims for decades.
False allegations and false claims and lawsuits are extraordinarily rare. And they're rare because the process stinks.
As the cost of these cases grow, so do calls for reform. Critics want to cap attorneys' fees and limit future payouts, which attorneys warn could ultimately harm survivors.
Survivors need to be able to have their day in court.
The Archdiocese of Orange County eventually settled Kastik's case for $1.5 million.
Because if you have your day in court and you prove it, then you should be entitled to that accountability that you deserve.
The question now for California lawmakers, does justice for survivors have to come at the cost of today's students? For CBS News California Investigates, I'm Julie Watts.